Have you ever had a big dream, but never started because it felt too big? Maybe you told yourself, I'll start when I have more time. I'll start when I feel ready. I'll start when everything is perfect. But here's the truth, that perfect moment almost never comes. Think about it. How many times have you promised yourself you'd start exercising, or reading more, or finally working on that skill you've always wanted to learn? But weeks, months, sometimes even years pass by, and nothing changes. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you don't care. It's because your brain sees the whole mountain and convinces you it's impossible to climb. But what if you didn't need to climb the whole mountain right now? What if you just needed to take one tiny step today? Starting small might sound too simple. But ask yourself, isn't it better to take one tiny step forward than to stay in the same place forever? Because here's the thing, greatness never starts with a giant leap. It starts with a small move, repeated over and over, until one day you look back and realize how far you've come. Before we go deeper, let me ask you, what's one thing you've been putting off just because it feels too big? Hold that thought, because in the next part, I'll show you how starting small can change everything. Have you ever noticed how the hardest part of anything is just starting? Think about it. Whether it's exercising, writing, or launching that business idea, you keep telling yourself, I'll start tomorrow when I'm ready. But here's the truth. Tomorrow never comes. One of the biggest reasons people don't start is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear that you'll waste time or look foolish. We imagine the worst-case scenario before we even take the first step. And ironically, that imagination is often scarier than reality. The thought of failing paralyzes us so much that we fail by default, simply by doing nothing. Then comes procrastination. You know that voice in your head, the one that says, I'll do it later. Later becomes tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week, and before you know it, months have passed. Procrastination disguises itself as rest, as waiting for the right time, but deep down, it's avoidance. And the more we avoid, the heavier the task feels. Another trap? Perfectionism. We wait until everything is perfect. The perfect plan, the perfect moment, the perfect mood. But let me tell you, perfection is just procrastination in disguise. Life will never hand you a flawless moment. The stars will never align perfectly. If you keep waiting, you'll be waiting forever. Here's the harsh reality. Not starting costs you more than failing ever will. You lose time, opportunities, and most importantly, momentum. Because the longer you wait, the harder it becomes. Oh, let me ask you this. What's scarier, failing or never even trying? Imagine this. A single seed looks so tiny, so fragile, that it seems almost insignificant. But give it time, water, and sunlight, and it becomes a tree strong enough to provide shade, fruits, and even shelter. That's the power of small beginnings. Here's the truth. When we think of success, we usually imagine the end picture. The best-selling author, the thriving business, the perfectly fit body, the confident speaker on stage. But what we don't see is the tiny, almost invisible steps that build up to those results. Think about it. Writing one page a day doesn't sound like much. But in a year, that's a full 365-page book. Saving just $5 a day seems laughable. But in a decade, with compounding interest, it can grow into thousands. Even walking 10 minutes daily doesn't feel like exercise. Yet over months, it builds stamina, improves health, and transforms your energy. The problem is we underestimate the power of small. We want results instantly. We want big leaps. But reality is built on compounding. The idea that little actions done consistently grow into massive change. Take any success story you admire. Athletes, entrepreneurs, creators, they all started embarrassingly small. A YouTuber with 0 subscribers posting shaky videos. An entrepreneur selling just one product out of their garage. A runner who couldn't even finish 1 mile. Small steps may look unimpressive at the start, but they're unstoppable over time. Because momentum is built, confidence grows, and results compound. That's how mountains are climbed, one small step at a time. Let's make this real with some powerful stories. Because it's one thing to talk about small steps, but it's another to see how those small steps transformed lives, habits, and even billion-dollar businesses. Take language learning. Imagine someone wanting to learn Italian. They dream of speaking fluently, But the thought of grammar rules, endless vocabulary, and perfect pronunciation feels overwhelming. Many people quit before they start because they think it'll take years. But what if you just practiced 5 new words a day? That's 35 words a week. In 3 months, you'd know over 400 words, enough to hold basic conversations. By the end of the year, you'd have over 1,800 words. That's not a small beginning anymore. That's fluency in progress. It all started with just 5 words a day. Or think about habits. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, often shares the story of how making tiny 1% improvements daily compounds into massive change. One example is someone who wanted to start exercising but felt intimidated by the gym. Instead of committing to an hour-long workout, they started by putting on their sneakers and walking for 5 minutes. That small action led to 10 minutes, then 20, and eventually a full workout routine. The habit stuck because it started so small it was impossible to fail. Now let's look at business. Did you know that Amazon began as a tiny online bookstore? Jeff Bezos didn't start with warehouses, prime shipping, or cloud services. He started with one small niche, selling books online. That small step created momentum, and over time, it snowballed into the Amazon we know today, one of the largest companies in the world. All of it started from something as simple as a single product. And here's another inspiring one: Apple. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak didn't start by building sleek iPhones or MacBooks. Their first product was the Apple I, a simple hand-built computer sold to hobbyists. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a starting point. Without that first small step, the Apple empire wouldn't exist. Even in daily life, we see this. A person who writes just 1 page a day ends up with a book by the end of the year. A person who saves just $5 a day ends up with nearly $2,000 in a year. It's not about the size of the step. It's about consistency and momentum. The lesson here: great achievements don't begin as great. They begin as small, almost invisible efforts. But with time, those efforts compound into results far bigger than you could imagine. Whether it's learning, health, or business, every success story has humble beginnings. The question isn't, can small steps work? The question is, what small step will you take today that your future self will thank you for? We've talked about why starting is hard, why small steps matter, and how others have done it. Now let's make it real for you. Because at the end of the day, motivation only gets you so far. What changes your life are the actions you take, especially the small, doable ones you can start with today. The beauty of starting small is that it takes away the pressure. You don't need to change everything overnight. You just need to create momentum. So, here are some practical ways to begin. 1. Shrink your first step. Instead of aiming for the ideal version of the goal, cut it down to something so small it feels almost silly not to do it. Want to start exercising? Don't commit to a 1-hour workout. Start with putting on your sneakers and doing 5 push-ups or walking for 2 minutes. Want to start reading more? Don't set a goal of finishing a book in a week. Just read 1 page today. The smaller the step, the less resistance you'll feel, and the easier it is to begin. Build micro-habits. A micro-habit is a tiny routine that slips into your day with almost no effort. For example, write 1 sentence in your journal. Learn 1 new word in a foreign language. Drink 1 extra glass of water. Stretch for 30 seconds before bed. These habits seem trivial at first, but they stack up. Over time, they rewire your brain and create lasting change. Attach it to something you already do. This is called habit stacking. If you want to meditate, do it right after brushing your teeth. If you want to write, do it while your coffee is brewing. Linking your new action to an existing routine makes it more automatic and less forgettable. 4. Give yourself permission to be imperfect. Perfectionism is the enemy of progress. Instead of worrying about doing it right, just do it. If your 5 minutes of writing is messy, that's okay. If your workout is short, it still counts. Progress beats perfection every time. 5. Use the 2-minute rule. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. Want to start flossing? Floss 1 tooth. Want to start journaling? Write a single word. The trick is lowering the barrier so much that there's no excuse not to. 6. Track small wins. Write down every small step you take, no matter how tiny. This gives you visible proof of your progress and keeps you motivated. Over a week, you'll see how the little actions are starting to add up. 7. Focus on today, not forever. You don't need to have the whole plan figured out. Just ask, what's one small thing I can do today? That's all you need to get started. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Starting small is not about lowering your standards. It's about creating momentum. Once you're moving, even in the tiniest way, it becomes easier to keep going. The key is to stop waiting for the perfect moment and simply take one small step today. Just imagine this. A year from now, you could look back at today as the day everything shifted for you. Not because you made a huge, dramatic leap, but because you took one small step. That's the secret most people overlook. Transformation doesn't come from giant, once-in-a-lifetime actions. It comes from consistent, almost invisible steps that compound over time. Think about it. Every big achievement you admire started with something tiny. Apple began in a garage. Olympic athletes started with their first day of training. Every language learner began with hello. None of them waited for the perfect time, the perfect plan, or the perfect conditions. They just started small, and here's the encouraging part. You can do the same. You don't need to have your whole life figured out. You don't need endless resources or flawless discipline. What you need is a willingness to begin today in the smallest way possible. Ask yourself, what's one step that feels almost laughably easy? Is it writing one sentence if you dream of being an author? Is it doing one push-up if you want to get healthier? Is it learning one new word in a language you've always wanted to speak? That's where you start. And once you take that first step, the second becomes easier. Momentum builds. And before you know it, you're miles from where you began. The beautiful thing about small beginnings is that they remove the pressure. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do it all at once. You just have to show up. And every time you do, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to become. Writers write. Athletes move. Learners learn. Bit by bit, you step into the identity you're building. Now, I want you to picture your future self, the version of you who kept going, who showed up daily with small actions. What do they look like? How do they feel? That person is within reach, but only if you start. Oh, here's my challenge for you. Don't just listen to this and move on. Take action. Today, right now, choose one small step, so small you can't fail. And then do it, because one day, you'll look back and realize that your big results, your transformation, your success was never about one giant leap. It was about the courage to start small. I'll leave you with this. What small step will you start today? Share it, commit to it, and take that first move. Your future self is waiting.